Welcome to the Beau Show. Anthony Fauci, the man, the myth, the charlatan. Fauci is announcing that he will be stepping down from his role as director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases in December. He's a spry 81 years old. And in addition to me reporting this news to you, I want to report to you how the media has reported it. It's just as important for us to know the spin that the media uses, since they don't just report facts. Take a look at this story from Cheddar News. Fauci announces December departure from government service. Let's start right there. They want to dub him as a government servant, as though he has truly served the American people. The man makes $434,000 a year, which is the highest salary of all public officials, even higher than the president. Fauci will also receive a pension after he retires, a comfortable $350,000 per year. Pretty sweet gig, huh? But that doesn't scratch the surface of the books and speeches he will give, and perhaps even TV shows or films he could be a part of. Indeed, Fauci became the poster child for COVID-19 and its response, and a messianic figure to Democrats. President Joe Biden remarked, quote, "Whether you've met him personally or not, he has touched all Americans' lives with his work. I extend my deepest thanks for his public service. The United States of America is stronger, more resilient, and healthier because of him," unquote. Touched their lives or didn't care about their lives? So Cheddar's first laudatory paragraph reads, quote, "Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's top infectious disease expert who became a household name and the subject of partisan attacks during the COVID-19 pandemic, announced Monday he will depart the federal government in December after more than 5 decades of service," unquote. So they position him as a victim, the subject of partisan attacks. The article goes on to say, quote, "He was a leader in the federal response to HIV, AIDS, and other infectious diseases even before the coronavirus hit," unquote. I don't recall him being a leader to anything, especially any outbreaks. Nowhere in this article does it discuss the reasons for attacks or his lies, his flip-flops, or his mismanagement of the pandemic. They just want you to think of him as a public servant, a hero, and a victim of partisan attacks, as if the attacks were unfounded. What is ironic and absurd is that Fauci said that those who attacked him were attacking science itself. The word science became a trump card. It became absolutist, which is actually quite opposite of what science is. But it's clear that those who doubted anthropogenic global warming had already been dubbed anti-science or climate deniers, in spite of the fact that climate change is an area that has been highly politicized and even jettisoned for partisan purposes and policy. Al Gore began that crusade years ago. So any person right of center who questioned the Gore hockey stick was a climate denier. Climate became the epicenter of the science debate, and it took on a 2.0 form with COVID. Those who believed COVID was truly a virus that jumped from bats to people were scientific. And those who said, wait a minute, there's something weird coming out of the Wuhan Institute of Virology, were conspiracy theorists and anti-science. Science is an ever-evolving practice, as things that we thought we knew change. But it's interesting how any skepticism about the origins of the pandemic or the erroneous medical guidance have been treated as fringe theories that get grandma killed. Now, on the flip side of how Cheddar praised Fauci, here's how Reason.com positioned it. Quote, "These critics have grown more numerous over the course of the pandemic, as Fauci's miscalculations became more evident. He has confessed to telling noble lies, to giving the public information he thought was wrong in order to serve some other goal. He downplayed the effectiveness of masks, purportedly out of concern that there wouldn't be enough of them for hospitals. He also told the public that the herd immunity threshold was lower than his actual mental estimation. In the end, neither figure was accurate, since COVID-19 is able to evade both infection-acquired and immunity-acquired protection. Many municipalities never felt like they had any choice to disregard missives from the federal health officials. Local authorities that did chart alternative courses were derided as science deniers and practitioners of human sacrifice by Fauci sycophants in the media," unquote. Now, this analysis is fair and comprehensive, whereas Cheddar gave Fauci a regal send-off. Why no mention of his misdeeds? And Fauci, using hindsight, says that his only mistake was not going far enough with lockdowns and isolation. Can you believe that? He would have made America Shanghai again. There's zero evidence that lockdowns worked, but plenty of evidence that they harm us mentally and destroy our economy, much to the delight of Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party. Furthermore, Fauci was a huge proponent of the very dangerous gain-of-function research that he offshored to the Wuhan lab, since it was considered too dangerous to do right here in the United States. You may recall this testy exchange between him and Senator Rand Paul.
You appear to have learned nothing from this pandemic. Will you today finally take some responsibility for funding gain-of-function research in Wuhan?
Senator, with all due respect, I disagree with so many of the things that you've said. First of all, gain of function is a very nebulous term. We have spent, not us, but outside bodies, a considerable amount of effort to give a more precise definition to the type of research that is of concern that might lead to a dangerous situation. You are aware of that. That is called P3CO.
We're aware that you deleted gain of function from the NIH website.
Well, I can get back to that in a moment if we have time.
So when EcoHealth Alliance took the virus SHC014 and combined it with WIV1 and caused a recombinant virus that doesn't exist in nature, and it made mice sicker, mice that had humanized cells, you're saying that that's not gain-of-function research?
According to the framework and guidelines.
So what you're doing is defining away gain-of-function.
No.
You're simply saying it doesn't exist because you changed the definition on the NIH website. This is terrible, and you're completely trying to escape the idea that we should do something about trying to prevent a pandemic from leaking from a lab. The preponderance of evidence now points towards this coming from the lab, and what you've done is change the definition on your website to try to cover your ass, basically. That's what you've done. You've changed the website to try to have a new definition that doesn't include the risky research that's going on. Until you admit that it's risky, we're not going to get anywhere. You have to admit that this research was risky. The NIH has now rebuked them. Your own agency has rebuked them.
In this way, Fauci tried to dodge with semantics. Remember, Rand Paul is a doctor. This is not just some random senator questioning him. I asked the senator about Fauci a day before he questioned him, and here's what he had to say. You and Representative Comer sent a letter to the NIH asking why changes were recently made to their website, including the removal of the gain-of-function subject heading. Is this their subtle way of being caught red-handed and covering up?
Yeah, and maybe not so subtle way. I mean, removing the definition or changing the definition. All along, Dr. Fauci has been hiding behind semantics or words. So we will tell him, yes, they created a virus that gained in dangerousness or gained in lethality. And he's like, oh, yeah, but it's not gain of function research. Well, if it isn't, then what is gain of function? And so I think what he's doing is hiding behind semantics, but now they've explicitly removed the definition of gain of function from the website. So they really are trying to hide the responsibility of the NIH, the responsibility of Dr. Fauci towards the funding of Wuhan and the possibility that this came from the Wuhan lab. They're covering their you know what here is what they're doing.
Gain of function is incredibly dangerous. And through the Freedom of Information Act, we have seen Fauci's emails and the severe concern that public health experts had about the virus leaking from the Wuhan lab. A consensus agreed that it was the most likely explanation. You may recall that Fauci was not at all worried in the beginning. He was against masks, and he was also against Donald Trump's travel ban from China. So was Nancy Pelosi. And we can't estimate it, but it's safe to say that such a ban saved countless lives. Isn't it interesting that China stopped travel into Wuhan, but had no problem with travel out of Wuhan to the United States and Europe? Fauci will never be able to live down this early poor guidance. He went on TV show after TV show, Mr. Media Hound, and pushed knowingly unsound medical advice. And then, of course, he pushed the vaccine, which we know is not a vaccine, but a type of messenger RNA technology that mimics the virus to trick your immune system. In hindsight, many, if not most, of the people who got Pfizer, Moderna, or J&J contracted COVID in some form. Logic tells you that herd immunity is exactly what we wanted, but yet Fauci kept pushing vaccines and boosters. He was on the cover of Time magazine, People, and In Style. Now, why would this doctor be willing to be on the cover of In Style magazine at the height of a pandemic? What medical professional do you know fancies himself a style icon? But Fauci's medical advice was about as sharp as his baseball throwing skills. Looks to me like his ball goes to the left. Hard left, if you know what I mean. Given his imminent retirement, I think we can expect to probably see him weigh in on more political matters and show his true colors. But not without consequence. Rand Paul will investigate him. And perhaps Fauci senses a political changing of the guard, with Republicans expected to take back the House and Senate later this year, and perhaps the presidency in 2024. But it will not make him immune to inquiry. Take a look at this tweet by former Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney. And Rand Paul responded, "Don't worry, I will." It's encouraging to know that the heat on him won't be turned off just because he's retiring.